Hey, what's going on, everybody? Back again with some more coverage. We're gonna look at some more endings from round six of the FIDE 2025 Grand Swiss Tournament, and today another bad day for Gukesh as he
King
loses for the
c7
second
and
time in
king
a row.
comes up the board. Rook d6, and here rook c2 was played.
Yeah. Well, things looking dire for the world champion. And we had a poll earlier on in the day where we were asking who is the best player who never became a world champion. And we gave you some options. We gave you Paul Morphy, Viktor Korchnoi, Vasil Ivanchuk, and other.
All right, stop playing this Korchnoi.
And
all right, so let's get into it. There you go. There's a moment where Gukesh actually resigned against Nicholas Theodorou. This position you see on the board is right after move 33. So the move c4 was just played here. Now this position is supposedly a draw. By of course by engine analysis, but as we have witnessed on several occasions, it's harder to put that into practice, even for strong grandmasters, and in this case, the world champion, Gukesh here. But this position right here rose from a Petrov defense with a drawish reputation, but the game took an unusual turn with this move c5 that was played earlier. But coming to this position, by move 33, both players were, not both players, but Black was approaching time trouble. As you can see by the timestamp, he had 6 minutes and 19 seconds left to make the time control. Gukesh had a comfortable 31 minutes on his clock. And even with that amount of time, it still didn't prevent him from making the blunder, which cost him the game here, and the move rook a7. Okay. Now, why is rook a7 a blunder? Rook a7 is a blunder because it forces the black king to go to a square that he wants to go to. The king wants to move up the board and assist the pawns. Okay, so after rook a7, the best move for black here is just simply king c6 and to start walking up the board. And instead of rook a7 here, white should use this tempi to move his king closer to the pawns. All right, so you keep this king cut off here along this rank, and you move the king closer to the pawns. So like for example, king e7, king e3, rook c1. Right, get behind the pawn, start harassing the pawn. That way this rook can't move without having to come back and protect the pawn. Let's say rook c2. And it's just hard for black to make any progress here. Now back to the game. After rook a7, king c6 wasn't played, but instead the move king e8. All right, which is winning also, and it's just because white is giving up important time here by checking with his rook. Again, he needed the time to improve his king position. So even after king e8, if you play king d2, king f2, you're tempi down. So now Now king e2 is forced here. And now black has these funny kind of tactics. Rook d3, for example, where he can just threaten to push the pawn. Now, after king c1, c3, rook c7, rook e3, and now black is totally winning here. All right, white has to sacrifice his rook on c3, and we know how it goes from there. So just a quick look once again. King f2, d2, king e2. This is just a sample line, of course. Rook d3, king d1 is forced, c3, rook c7. Of course, the threat is just simply c2, right? Forcing the king away from d1, rook c7, and then rook e3 will win the game. So this is why the loss of Tempe was so important here. So again, if king f2 right away, all right, let's say king f2, for example, and let's do the same thing. d2, all right. You see the difference? Now you just simply have rook d6 check. So the rook was doing a good job where it was at. It's one of those scenarios where if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? That old saying. So now you can see why rook a7 cost white the game here, because now, even though black didn't make the best move, after all, he was in time trouble and just trying to get to the time control. All right, black is still winning here because now the king hasn't gained any time, right, to get to the pawns, and the rook has lost some scope as far as being able to check the king along the ranks. See, now white can only check the king. I'm sorry. White can only check the king on the A file now, which of course will drive the king to where it wants to go. All right. So after king e8, rook a8 check was played. King e7, and we see some repetition of moves again, just trying to make time control. There was like a false threefold repetition claim by Gukesh, and this gave Nicholas actually 2 extra minutes on the clock. And so that's all. That's what this is about. Is just trying to make the time control. So rook a8 check, and king d7, and notice how Gukesh can only check on the A file. This is insufficient. Again, king d8, rook a8, and now king c7, avoiding the repetition. Now you can see the problem with white's position. Now black just moves his king forward. I'll just show you one more time. Like, so for instance, let's go back while this repetition was going on. So let's say after king d7 here, white says, you know what, let me just bring the rook back and kind of try to reset the position. All right, what would happen here is now, say like king c7, and let's just say move like rook d6, rook c2 check, king f3, d2, and this will be followed by c3. So attack the pawn, right? C3. Let's say white tries to queen his own pawn. And again, this is going to end with white having to sacrifice his rook. So rook d2, c2 here, and then rook c4, and then it's just not enough at the end of the day. So, man, that tempo was critical. So back to the game here. So after king d7, now we'll move 40. Time control has been met. One more time. Rook a8 check, king c7. Rook a7 was played, king c6. Rook a6 check. And now the king is just going where it wants to go. Rook d6. And finally when finally when white decides to go back to the 6th rank, it's too late. The king is already where it wants to be. So he plays rook d6 to try to keep the king from going to d4. Rook c2. King f3. Again, remember, king is too far away. d2. Rook d8. c3. e6. And here's the last gasp effort from white here. And after rook c1. And white's idea is basically for black to play d8, or white's hope rather is for black to play d1 with the pawn, and then he can sacrifice and then push his pawn. So I'll just give like a little sample variation. So like after rook c1, let's say d7 for example. You know, that would be a blunder, of course. And just rook takes, and then all the Gukesh fans will be very happy. But of course, that is not going to happen, or it didn't happen. So after rook c1, Gukesh just resigned. All right, because what's really going to happen if e7, then just simply rook e1. Okay, and now the tide is turned. Let's say if Gukesh were the queen, then just simply rook takes, and there you have it. Black with queen. So instead of going through all of that, Gukesh just resigned on move, or at move 47 rather. All right, so again, if you saw my last video, you know, maybe a little bit too critical of some of the end game play, but you know, I mean, these are top players. You really can't criticize the openings too much at this point, because they're all, you know, basically computers playing each other at this point. I mean, for a lot of them, I'm not saying all of them are, but you know, I'm sure the preparation is off the chart. So if we're gonna look at anything, it's the end game. And what I'm seeing is that very simple end games are being blundered away. And I'm not being facetious when I say simple end games, and without any kind of time pressure either. Gukesh had 31 minutes when he made that blunder. Just one more thing before I end this particular video. I'll probably look at some more end games. But tell me why in this Nepomniachtchi Shirov game, Nepomniachtchi with the white pieces, Shirov with the black pieces. Here, white has a great position, probably pretty close to winning. You tell me why in this position Nepo plays move knight f4, man. And when I looked at the position, within 2 seconds, I see this move knight d4. I mean, aren't you just when I mean, listen, I haven't looked at it deeply, but I'm like, come on, man. If he does bishop takes knight here, then just simply knight takes e6, followed by queen takes h5. He doesn't have this because you just take here. Knight takes f6. Obviously, if king g7, you have the check right here. If king f8, obviously knight d7. So king h8, right, is the only acceptable move here. Queen is under attack, but you come here. You leave this on prise. The knight on d4. But that's not even, a realistic goal for black. Because again, you just grabbed the rook. So you just got queen takes c6, knight takes c6. But even without seeing that far, knight d4 seems to me like the obvious move. It's almost like that seems like a move you have to talk yourself out of doing. So, I don't know. This game ended up in the draw. Knight f4 was played. Shirov played queen c5. And again, I don't understand. It's like you're talking about like overthinking. It's like, goodness gracious, queen d2. And I don't want to hear nothing about time control because Shirov with the black pieces, time trouble. Shirov with the black pieces only has 16 minutes on his clock, so maybe he has more of an excuse for making mistakes. But Nepomniachtchi has over an hour. He has an hour and 5 minutes here. And instead of, again, just the obvious move, man, grab the rook. Knight takes. I don't understand. Knight takes, f takes. I don't know, queen here. Take the material. Instead, queen d2. What's going on here? Rook takes e4, bishop takes e4. This is a former world championship challenger right here in Nepo. Rook takes e4. He plays knight d5. Like, all right. Can't knock that too much. Right? Still challenging the f7 square. King g7. Rook c3. See, and now black, has this 3-1 pawn phalanx, man. And white has to be careful. Even though black has this weaknesses in the position on d6 and f6 and f7 with these double pawns. D5, knight is very strong at d5. Now black has enough counter chances to equalize. In other words, enough things that white has to worry about. See, he starts pushing. And I'm not giving any more commentary on this game, but I just want to show, ended in the draw after these exchanges. And I had just wanted to show the position where Nepo, I'm not gonna say he was winning, but man, he had like a big advantage here. And listen, you could play knight f4, but it's, to me, knight d4 is the obvious move here, because knight d4, it brings the knight further up the board, centralizes the piece, attacks the rook on e6. The other knight is doing a great job right now on h5 because it keeps pressure on the f6 square. If that rook on e6 moves, you have an instant fork. So why not add another piece into the game? Another thing you're doing after knight d4 is you give this rook more scope along the third rank. And now this rook can possibly, at a convenient moment, participate in the attack against the king. So that is it for this video. Like I said, I'll be looking at some more games. I might make another video, the end game, but like I said, I just wanted to show you the Gukesh game and the end of this one that caught my eye. But this is a good tournament so far. A lot of decisive games, a lot of a lot of unknown players or lesser known players, should I say, having their moment and chance to shine, in this tournament. So that is good. That's what's great about these big Swiss tournaments is you get to see a lot of guys that normally wouldn't have the opportunity, or guys that you just never heard of really have a chance to make their mark. And Nicholas Theodorou is one of them, right? He's been around for a while, of course, but now he can say that he defeated a reigning champion and add that to his resume. So once again, please like, subscribe, hit me up in the comment section, man. Let me know what you think. Please feel free to check the links below. Donate to the channel, even if it's just a quarter. Go to the PayPal or the Cash App or Venmo and send a quarter. If that's all you can afford, or $1 or something like that, I would appreciate it very much. And subscribe, hit the thumbs up and all that stuff. And I'll see you guys, shortly.